In this video, we will go over how to calculate the percent composition of each element in an entire compound. So here we have a substance known as C7H5NO3S, contains 7 atoms of carbon, or you can say 7 moles of carbon, 5 atoms or 5 moles of hydrogen, 1 atom of nitrogen or 1 mole, 3 of oxygen, and 1 of S. So all of these elements, their mass percentage must add up, to 100%. So the first thing we will do is calculate the molecular weight of this whole entity. And then we know that in the whole thing, we have 7 parts carbon. You know, carbon is about 12.01 grams per mole. We have 5 parts hydrogen, and hydrogen is 1.01 roughly grams per mole. 1 part nitrogen, 3 parts oxygen, and then 1 part sulfur. So from there, we can do the part over whole analysis, get a fraction, and that fraction, when we multiply it by 100, automatically gives us a percentage. So let's go about answering this. Let's calculate the molecular weight of this entire substance. So like I said before, 12.01 grams per mole is in 1 mole of carbon, but we don't have 1 mole of carbon, we have 7. And like that, hydrogen, we have 5 parts, each one at 1.01 grams per mole. Nitrogen is 14.01. Again, we get these values from the periodic table. Oxygen is about 16.01 grams per 1 mole. We've got 3. And then sulfur, looking that up in the periodic table, is 32.07 grams per mole. Adding all of this up, 1 mole of this whole chemical compound has a mass of 183.23 grams per mole. Now let's figure out of that whole 183.23 grams per mole contains, out of that whole, what contains carbon. So that's going to be this here, 7 times 12.01. That's the part. The whole is 183.23. Let's highlight that in green. So doing that, this is our part carbon. This is the whole of the entire molecule times 100. I'm getting about 45.9% carbon in this whole molecule. Let's do the same thing for hydrogen. So here's the part for hydrogen. Here's the whole for the entire molecule, part over whole. We multiply it by 100 to get a percentage. Doing that for hydrogen, we're getting 2.76 mass percent. This is a mass percent of hydrogen. Don't forget the grams over moles in the numerator cancel out with the grams over moles in the denominator. Let's do the exact same thing for nitrogen, oxygen, and sulfur and see what we get. Right, for nitrogen, I'm going to highlight this in blue. It's 1 part nitrogen to the whole, and that's about 7.65% nitrogen, so we'll color code that in blue. Oxygen is 3 of these, so let's make that well, let's just keep it the same color. 3 times 16.01 divided by 183.23. Doing that on my calculator, I'm getting 26.2% oxygen. And then finally for sulfur, which corresponds to this last element here, there's 1 mole or 1 atom of sulfur, and that divided by the whole mass is 17.5% nitrogen after we multiply it by 100 to get it as a percentage. One final thing we can do here is we can add the percentage of carbon plus the percentage of hydrogen plus the percentage of nitrogen plus the percentage of oxygen, and finally add that to the percentage of nitrogen, and we should get 100%, and in fact they do all add up to 100%.